The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was watering the petunias in the backyard. Michael's name lit up my phone screen, and I felt that mix of hope and fear that only a mother can understand. It had been 4 months since I last heard his voice. I answered with my heart racing. "Mom, I need to speak with you right now." His tone was dry, almost hostile. There was no affectionate hello, no questions about my health, just that urgency I knew so well, that way of treating me as if I were an employee available at any hour. "Tell me, son." "What do you need?" I replied, trying to stay calm. He took a deep breath and released the words like knives. "Jessica's mother just bought a new house, an incredible mansion in the gated community. She knows how to live. Mom, she actually did something with her life. And you. When are you going to get out of that old house and have some success in life?" I felt as if the air had been ripped from my lungs. My fingers gripped the hose until the water stopped flowing. Michael continued without giving me a chance to respond. "Seriously, Mom, it embarrasses me when my in-laws ask about you and I have to say you are still there, in that house that looks like it is from the 70s, doing nothing productive. Jessica always tells me her mom is an example of a successful woman, and I do not know what to answer when she asks what you have achieved." I closed my eyes. The afternoon sun burned the back of my neck, but I felt cold all over my body. Every word from my son was a slap in the face, a slap that hurt more because it came from the hands I had held when he learned to walk. "Michael," I began to say, but he interrupted me again. "No, Mom. Let me finish. Linda, my mother-in-law, invited us this Saturday to her new housewarming party. There are going to be more than 50 guests, important people, business owners, doctors, real people. And Jessica asked if we could invite you. But I told her it was better not to, that it would be uncomfortable for everyone. You understand?" "Right. It was not a question. It was a declaration. My son was uninviting me from my own life." "I understand," I whispered, although I understood nothing. Or maybe I understood too much. "Look, Mom, I am not telling you this to make you feel bad. I am telling you because I love you and I want you to react. Dad died 3 years ago already. It is time you did something with your life. Sell that house. Move to a smaller apartment. Something more modern. Prove that you can also be someone. Someone. As if I were no one. As if the 32 years I dedicated to raising him, to cooking every meal, to waiting up for him every night of his adolescence, to paying for his entire college tuition, did not make me someone, as if being his mother was worth absolutely nothing." He hung up without saying goodbye. The tone of the deadline resonated in my ear like an insect buzzing. I stood in the garden with the hose hanging uselessly in my hand, looking at the petunias that suddenly seemed pathetic to me. Small flowers trying to look pretty in a garden that no one visited. I went inside the house and sat on the living room sofa, that cream-colored sofa that Michael had just called old. The same sofa where he sat as a child to watch cartoons while I braided his hair still wet after a bath. The same sofa where we cried together the day his father died. The same sofa that now, according to him, was evidence of my failure. My cell phone vibrated, a message from Jessica. Finally, she dared to write to me directly after months of silence. "Hi, Evelyn. Michael told me you guys spoke. I hope you understand it is not personal. It is just that Mom's party is going to be very elegant and we do not want you to feel out of place. You know how high society people are. They judge a lot. And, well, you have always been simpler. There is nothing wrong with that. Everyone at their own level. Kisses." I read the message 3 times. Every word was carefully chosen to sound kind while stabbing me. Everyone at their own level. As if I were below and they were above. As if my life were inferior simply because I did not exhibit it on social media. I got up and walked to the window. From there, I could see the quiet street of the neighborhood, my neighbors' houses, some newer, others older than mine, all with stories. all with families that probably also had their silent dramas. I remembered the day Michael married Jessica, 5 years ago. I wore a champagne-colored dress that I had custom made. I looked good. I felt good. But Jessica looked me up and down at the reception and whispered something to her mother, Linda. The two of them laughed. I pretended not to notice. Later, when my grandson Ethan was born, I tried to be present. I bought the most expensive crib in the store. Designer clothes for the baby, diapers, bottles. Everything they needed. But Jessica always had an excuse. Not today, Evelyn. The baby is sleeping. Not today, we have visitors. Not today, we are busy. Not today. Not today. Until I stopped asking. Until the visits became spaced out. Until my grandson turned 2 and I had barely held him 6 times. And Michael never said anything. He never defended me. Little by little, he turned into a stranger who carried my last name, but no longer my love. I looked at my cell phone again. Jessica's message was still there. Those poisoned words disguised as consideration. Everyone at their own level. Something broke inside me in that moment. It was not dramatic. There were no tears or screams, just a fissure, small but deep. The fissure that forms when you realize the people you love despise you. I poured myself a glass of water in the kitchen. My hands were trembling slightly. 61 years of life, and my own son called me a failure. 61 years of work, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, reduced to an old house and an insignificant existence. But there was something they did not know, something I had kept in silence for 2 years, a secret that shone in the darkness of my humiliation like a promise of justice. I smiled. It was a small smile, barely a movement in the corners of my lips, because I had already bought my house, my mansion, my palace facing the sea. Night fell over my house like a heavy blanket. I sat in the dining room with a cup of tea getting cold in my hands. Michael's words kept bouncing in my head like ping-pong balls. Old house. No success. Embarrassment. Every word was a hammer hitting what was left of my self-esteem. But I had a secret so big that sometimes I woke up in the early morning wondering if it was real or just a beautiful dream. 3 years ago, when my husband died, the world collapsed. Robert had been my partner for 38 years, the man who brought me flowers every Friday, who hugged me from behind while I cooked, who whispered that I was the most beautiful woman in the world, even when I had messy hair and clothes stained with food. His death was sudden. A heart attack while driving back from work. I did not even have time to say goodbye, only the phone ringing at 6 in the afternoon and the voice of a paramedic saying, "I am so sorry, ma'am." The first months were hell. Michael came to visit me often then. He had not married Jessica yet. He was still my son. He hugged me, made me coffee, stayed to sleep in his old room so I would not feel alone. But then he met Jessica at a business conference. She worked in marketing for a major company. She was pretty, sure of herself, with that type of confidence that comes from never having truly suffered. Michael fell in love like a teenager, and I was happy for him. I was truly happy. The wedding was 6 months later. Everything very fast. Jessica insisted it be at the private country club where her family had a membership, a place with huge windows, marble floors, and waiters with white gloves. I felt out of place from the moment I arrived. Linda, Jessica's mother, greeted me with 2 air kisses that did not touch my skin. "What a nice dress, Evelyn." She told me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "It is vintage." Right. The way she said vintage sounded as if she said garbage. That night at the reception, Jessica pulled me into a corner. Her ivory dress shone under the lights. "Evelyn, I need to ask you something," she said with a voice soft but firm. "Michael is starting a new stage of his life, an important stage. I come from a family with certain social expectations. I need you to understand that sometimes. In business meetings or important events, maybe it is better if you do not attend. It is nothing personal. It is just that image is important in my world. I stayed mute. Literally, I could not articulate a word. She took my silence as agreement, gave me a pat on the arm, and walked away toward her friends who were laughing while drinking champagne. I did not say anything to Michael. What was I going to tell him? Your wife does not want me around because she sees me as poor. It sounded ridiculous even in my head, so I swallowed the poison and smiled in the photos. 3 months after the marriage, Michael arrived at my house with eyes bright with excitement. Mom, I have an amazing opportunity. An investment partner wants us to open a digital advertising agency. It is the perfect moment, but I need initial capital, $50,000. My heart raced. $50,000 was a lot of money, but he was my son, my only son, the boy I had raised while Robert worked double shifts. The young man who had graduated with honors thanks to me, paying every tuition bill without complaining. I had that money. Robert had left me some savings. I was not a millionaire, but we had enough to live comfortably. I gave the $50,000 to Michael in a check. He hugged me tight. You are the best mom in the world. I am going to pay you back every cent. I promise. He never did. The agency went bankrupt in 8 months. Michael arrived at my house one afternoon with deep circles under his eyes and told me he was sorry, that the economy was bad, that his partner had scammed him, that everything had gone down the drain. I lost your money, Mom. I'm so sorry. I hugged him. Do not worry, son. Money comes and goes. The important thing is that you are okay. He cried on my shoulder like when he was a child. But Jessica did not come with him that day. Jessica showed not even a pinch of empathy. In fact, 2 weeks later, I saw her posting on social media photos of a vacation in Cancun, a vacation that cost easily $5,000. When I asked Michael how they could go on vacation if they had just lost so much money, he answered me sharply. Jessica had those vacations planned since before Mom. I am not going to disappoint her just because the business went wrong. She already has enough stress, as if losing $50,000 of his mother's money was not a reason for stress for her. That is where the distancing started, little by little, like a crack in a wall that grows so slowly you do not realize until the wall splits in two. The calls became spaced out. The visits decreased when Ethan was born, my grandson. I could barely see him in the hospital. Jessica said she was too tired for visitors. After that, there was always an excuse. But what they did not know, what no one knew except my lawyer David and my best friend Susan, was that Robert had left me much more than simple savings. Robert had invested in real estate and stocks for years. Small investments, constant, silent. He was never one to brag. He never wore brand-name clothes or drove luxury cars, but he was smart with money. When he died, the lawyer summoned me 3 months later for the full reading of the will. I expected maybe $100,000 in savings. When David showed me the papers, I almost fainted. $2,300,000 in liquid assets, properties that had appreciated, shares of tech companies that had exploded in value. Robert had left me rich, and I did not even know it. Evelyn. David told me seriously, this money changes your life. You can do whatever you want, travel, invest, live like a queen. But I did not want to live like a queen. I just wanted to be close to my son and my grandson. So I kept the secret. I did not say anything to Michael. I thought that maybe if he believed I was poor, he would keep visiting me for love and not for interest. How foolish I was. A year after Robert's death, David called me with a proposal. Evelyn, there is a property facing the ocean that just came on the market. It is a spectacular mansion, 4 bedrooms, infinity pool with ocean view, gardens designed by an award-winning landscaper. It is in pre-sale. If you buy it now, you save $200,000 off the final price. I went to see it one Saturday morning. I drove 2 hours to the coast with Susan accompanying me. She was the only person besides David who knew my real financial situation. my friend for 30 years, the woman who was with me in the hospital when Michael was born, the one who held my hand at Robert's funeral. When we arrived at the property, I was left breathless. The mansion was a light sand color with terracotta roof tiles. The huge windows reflected the sky. The entrance had a hand-carved stone fountain. Palm trees guarded the cobblestone path that led to the main door. The real estate agent welcomed us with a professional smile. "Mrs. Evelyn, welcome. Allow me to show you paradise." We toured every corner. The main living room had imported light wood floors. The kitchen looked like it came out of a magazine with stainless steel appliances and a central granite island. The bedrooms were spacious, luminous, each with its private marble bathroom. But what stole my heart was the back terrace, an infinite extension of wood that led directly to the pool, and beyond the pool, the ocean. The horizon merged with the water in a perfect line. The sound of the waves was a siren song calling me to stay forever. Susan squeezed my hand. "Buy it, Evelyn. This is yours. You deserve it." I signed the papers that same afternoon. $750,000, the biggest and most impulsive purchase of my life. But I did not regret it for a second. The mansion would be ready in a year. Meanwhile, I continued living in my old house. As Michael called it contemptuously, I kept the secret like a treasure, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal it. I thought that moment would be the housewarming. I planned a beautiful party. I hired a catering service, a DJ, decorators. I ordered elegant invitations on recycled paper with gold lettering. 50 invitations for family, friends, neighbors, colleagues of Robert who were still in touch with me. One of those invitations was for Michael and Jessica. I delivered it personally one Sunday when they stopped briefly by my house. It was one of those obligatory visits that Jessica allowed every 2 months. 15 minutes of forced conversation in the living room while Ethan played with a toy car on the floor, and I was dying to hug him. I extended the cream-colored envelope. "It is an invitation for something special," I told them with a smile. "I would love for you to go." Michael took the envelope with reluctance. "What is it, Mom? Your birthday is not until December. Open it and you will see." He took out the card and read it out loud. "Evelyn Reyes invites you to the inauguration of her new residence. Saturday, May 20th at 6 in the afternoon. Dress code elegant. Please confirm attendance." There was a silence. Jessica snatched the card from Michael's hands. Her eyes scanned the letters with an incredulous expression. Then she let out a laugh. A sharp and cruel laugh. "Oh, Evelyn, really? What imagination. New residence. You moved to a smaller apartment finally." "No," I replied, maintaining my calm. "It is a house on the coast." Jessica exchanged a look with Michael, that look that couples share when they think someone is crazy. "Uh-huh. Sure, a house on the coast, and I suppose you also bought a yacht." I did not answer. I just smiled. Michael looked at me with something resembling concern. "Mom, are you okay? Have you been taking your vitamins? Sometimes at your age, people start to have episodes of confusion. I am 61 years old, Michael, not 90. I am perfectly lucid. I bought a house 2 years ago. The remodeling just finished. I want you to come see it." Jessica got up from the sofa abruptly. She took the invitation and ripped it into 4 pieces. She let them fall onto the coffee table like confetti. "Evelyn, I do not know what little game you are playing, but we are not going to play along. It is pathetic. A woman of your age inventing fantasies to get attention. I am not inventing anything. Then show us a photo. Show us the deed. Show us something that proves you are not delusional." I had my cell phone in my pocket. I had hundreds of photos of the mansion, videos of the ocean, images of every room. But something in the way Jessica looked at me, with that absolute contempt, made me keep silence. "I do not have to prove anything to you, Jessica." She laughed again. "Of course not, because it does not exist." "Michael, let's go. I am not going to stay here listening to delusions." Michael picked up Ethan from the floor. The boy protested because he wanted to keep playing, but his father carried him firmly. "Mom, I think you should go to the doctor. Get some tests done. Sometimes stress and loneliness can cause hallucinations. I am not hallucinating." "Okay, Mom, whatever you say. We are leaving. And please, do not send more invitations to imaginary things. It is worrying." They left. The door closed behind them with a dry thud. I stayed seated on the sofa looking at the broken pieces of my invitation on the table. Susan came out of the kitchen where she had been listening to everything. She hugged me tight. "Oh, Evelyn, they are miserable people. Complete wretches." I cried that night. I cried until I ran out of tears. Not for the humiliation, but for the certainty that my son had lost me, that the boy I loved with every cell of my body now saw me as a burden, as a crazy old woman who invented lies to get attention. 2 weeks later, I received a message from Jessica, this time without the disguise of kindness. "Evelyn, please seek professional help. Michael is very worried about your mental health. If you continue with these fantasies, we are going to have to consider more serious options. No one wants to see you institutionalized, but if you continue like this, we will have no alternative." She was threatening me. She was threatening to lock me in a psychiatric hospital for telling the truth. I called David that same afternoon. I told him everything. He stayed silent for a few seconds and then said something that changed everything. "Evelyn, I have copies of everything. Deeds, photographs, contracts. If they want proof, I have a mountain of proof. Just tell me when and where, and I will bring everything." "Not yet, David. It is not the moment yet." Because I had learned something in my 61 years of life. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and I was going to wait for the perfect moment to freeze them all. That moment arrived 3 months later, when Michael called me to humiliate me on the phone, when he compared me to Linda, when he told me I was an embarrassment. That was the signal I had been waiting for. That night, after hanging up the call and reading Jessica's venomous message, I dialed David's number. He answered on the second ring. "Evelyn." What a surprise. "How are you, David?" I replied with a calm voice. "I think it is time. Prepare everything, every document, every photograph, every proof. We are going to need them very soon." There was a pause. Then I heard the smile in his voice. Finally, it was about time. Those people are going to learn who you really are. I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of my living room. Outside, the wind moved the branches of the plum tree that Robert had planted 20 years ago. I could feel his presence, as if he were sitting next to me, holding my hand, my love. I whispered to the air, "I hope you are watching this, because I am going to make them regret it. For you, for me, for all the years they humiliated us." Friday night, I received an unexpected message. It was from Linda, Jessica's mother. She had never written to me directly. In fact, in 5 years of knowing her, we had barely exchanged more than 20 words. "Dear Evelyn," said the message with a fake sweetness that I could feel through the screen. "Tomorrow is the inauguration of my new house. I know Michael mentioned it to you. Jessica told me that maybe you would feel uncomfortable coming, but I insist that you come. After all, you are the grandmother of my grandson. It would be nice if you were present. The address is 2847 Oakwood Avenue, Residential Oakwood Estates, at 7 in the evening. See you tomorrow." I read the message 3 times. Every word dripped with condescension. Maybe you would feel uncomfortable. As if the problem were my discomfort and not her contempt. As if she were doing me a favor by inviting me at the last minute. Susan was with me when the message arrived. She read over my shoulder and let out a snort. "It is a trap, Evelyn. They are inviting you to humiliate you publicly, so that all their rich friends see you and laugh at the poor mother-in-law." "I know," I replied, "but I am going anyway." "You are crazy. They are going to destroy you." I smiled. Let them try. That night I called David. Tomorrow is the day, I told him without preamble. I need you to come prepared with absolutely everything. Deeds, photographs, invoices, receipts. I want every proof of the existence of my mansion. And I also need you to bring something else. What thing, Evelyn? The pieces of the invitation. There was a confused silence on the other end of the line. What invitation? The one Jessica ripped in front of me 3 months ago. I picked it up from the floor after they left. I kept it in a Ziploc bag. It is in the first drawer of my desk. I need you to photograph it well. Make sure Jessica's fingerprints are seen where she ripped it. Make sure the date is seen. Make sure everything is seen. David stayed quiet for a moment. Then he let out a low laugh. Evelyn, you scare me when you get like this, but I love it. I am going to prepare a presentation that will leave them speechless. See you tomorrow at 8:30. The party starts at 7. I want you to arrive when everyone is already gathered. Maximum impact. Understood. Oh, and Evelyn. One question. Are you going alone or do you want Susan to accompany you from the beginning? I am going to arrive alone. Like the poor mother-in-law they think I am. I want them to see me enter humble. I want them to feel they won. And later, David, later we are going to wipe that smile off their faces. I hung up and stood looking at my closet. What does one wear to their own public execution? What does one wear when she knows she is going to enter hell, but also knows she is going to come out victorious? I pulled out a pearl gray dress. Simple, elegant, but discreet. No flashy jewelry, no excessive makeup. I wanted to look exactly like they imagined me, an older woman, simple, almost invisible. Saturday dawned with a clear sky. I woke up early, although the party was not until the night. Nerves were eating my stomach. They were not nerves of fear. They were nerves of anticipation, like an athlete before the most important competition of their life. Susan arrived at 5 in the afternoon. She brought a bottle of wine. For the nerves, she said with a smile. Although I think the ones who are going to need wine are them when you are done with them. I got ready slowly. Every movement was deliberate. I combed my hair into a low bun, no elaborate hairstyles, minimal makeup, a touch of pale pink lipstick. The pearl earrings Robert gave me for our 20th anniversary, the gray dress, low black shoes. I looked in the mirror. I looked exactly like what they wanted me to be. A common woman, a forgettable mother, an insignificant mother-in-law. Perfect. I left home at 6:40. The drive to Oakwood Estates took 25 minutes. It was an exclusive area of the city. Huge houses with perfectly manicured gardens, electric gates, private security guards on every corner. I gave the address to the guard at the entrance. He checked a list and let me pass with reluctance, as if it were obvious I did not belong there. Linda's house was impressive, not as big as my mansion, but definitely luxurious. Modern facade with large windows, garden illuminated with indirect lights, expensive cars parked on the street, a BMW, 2 Mercedes, an Audi, a Tesla. I parked my 10-year-old sedan between the Mercedes and the Audi. It looked ridiculous there, like an ugly duckling among swans. I took a deep breath, grabbed my small purse, and walked toward the entrance. The door was open. Soft music came from inside, laughter, conversations, the clinking of glasses toasting. I entered. The living room was full of elegant people, men in designer suits, women with dresses that cost more than the monthly rent of an average apartment, sparkling jewelry, glasses of champagne, waiters circulating with trays of canapes. No one saw me enter, or maybe they saw me and did not consider me worthy of attention. I looked for Michael with my gaze. I found him in a corner talking with a group of men. He was wearing a dark gray suit I did not know. He looked good. He looked successful. He was laughing at something one of the men was saying. Jessica was on the other side of the room. Her emerald green dress fit her perfectly. Her hair loose in soft waves. Impeccable makeup. She was speaking with a group of women who looked at her as if she were a celebrity. And there, in the center of everything, was Linda, the hostess, the queen of the castle, champagne-colored dress with gold details, diamond necklace, radiant smile. I approached slowly, like a ghost crossing a ballroom. Linda saw me first. Her smile froze for a fraction of a second. Then she composed herself and walked toward me with extended arms. "Evelyn, what a joy that you came." Her hug was mechanical. Her lips grazed the air near my cheek without really touching me. "You look very good, very appropriate for the occasion." Appropriate. Another poisoned word. "Thanks for inviting me, Linda. Your house is beautiful." She lit up. "Isn't it true it cost a year of remodeling, but it was worth every cent? Come, let me show you." She took me by the arm as if we were friends and guided me through the house. She showed me the Italian kitchen, the dining room with a table for 12 people, the private movie theater in the basement, the study with mahogany bookshelves, the back garden with its wooden deck and stainless steel grill. In every space she dropped comments. "This lamp is from Murano, imported directly from Italy. This painting is by an award-winning artist. This floor is German porcelain. It costs $200 a square meter." Every word was a reminder of her superiority, of my inferiority. I just nodded, smiled, congratulated. We returned to the main living room. Linda tapped a glass with a knife. The clinking made everyone go quiet and turn toward her. "Friends, family, thank you for being here tonight. This house represents a dream fulfilled. Years of hard work and dedication. I want to propose a toast to all of you who accompany me in this special moment. And I want to toast especially to my daughter Jessica and my son-in-law Michael. You are my pride." Everyone applauded. Jessica smiled. Michael raised his glass. Then Linda saw me. Her eyes shone with something dark. "And I also want to thank Evelyn for coming. I know it is not easy for her to be in environments like this. She comes from more modest circumstances. But it is important to include the whole family, regardless of their economic differences." The silence that followed was deafening. All eyes turned toward me. I could feel the pity, the judgment, the discomfort. Jessica bit her lip not to laugh. Michael looked at the floor, and I smiled, a calm smile, a smile they interpreted as a shamed humility. Linda continued with her speech. She raised her glass higher, and her voice acquired that tone of fake inspiration people use when they want to seem profound. We all have different paths in life. Some of us reach material success. Others find wealth in simpler things. And that is okay. Everyone lives according to their capabilities. The words floated in the air like knives covered in honey. Several people nodded with feigned compassion. A woman with a pearl necklace looked at me with that expression reserved for abandoned puppies in the street. Jessica approached me with her glass of champagne. She looked radiant under the indirect lights. "Evelyn, I'm glad you came. I know it must be difficult for you to be here seeing all this, but it is good for you to get out of your comfort zone, to see how successful people live. Maybe it will inspire you to do something with your life." I gripped my purse tighter. My knuckles turned white, but I maintained the smile. "Thanks, Jessica. Definitely it is inspiring." She gave me a little pat on the shoulder as if I were a child needing comfort. Then she walked away toward her friends who were waiting with curious expressions. I saw them whispering. One of them looked at me sideways and laughed behind her hand. Michael finally approached. He seemed uncomfortable. "Mom, you did not have to come if you did not want to. You called me to compare me with Linda." I replied in a low voice so only he would hear. "You told me she had actually done something with her life. I wanted to see that with my own eyes." He sighed. "Look, Mom, I did not say that to hurt you. I just want you to react, to do something productive. You are 61 years old, not 90. You still have time to improve your situation, my situation, as if I were in bankruptcy, as if I lived in misery. I understand, son. He studied me for a moment. He seemed to want to say something else, but Jessica called him from the other side of the room. Michael, come. I want to introduce you to someone important. My son left me standing alone next to a decorative plant, like a piece of furniture, like something that was there but no one really wanted to see. A waiter passed with a tray of champagne. I took a glass, although I had no intention of drinking it. I just needed something to do with my hands. I moved toward the large window that faced the garden. From there, I could see the whole room without being the center of attention. It was easier to breathe on the periphery. I observed the people. Everyone looked comfortable in their wealth. Conversations about trips to Europe, stock investments, private schools for the kids, memberships in exclusive clubs, a world where money flowed like water and no one worried about unpaid bills. Linda was in her element. She circulated among the guests like a queen bee attending her hive. Jessica followed her, mother and daughter, so alike, so sure of their superiority. I looked at my watch. 8:15. David would arrive in 15 minutes. I felt a presence at my side. It was an older man, maybe 70 years old, with perfectly combed gray hair and a dark suit. He smiled at me with genuine kindness. Good evening. You are Evelyn. Right, I am Frank, the accountant for Linda's family. Nice to meet you. He looked around and then leaned slightly toward me. He lowered his voice. I heard what Linda said a while ago. It was unnecessary. You did not have to be pointed out like that. His words took me by surprise. He was the first person all night showing real empathy. Thanks, Frank. It is kind of you to say. He shook his head. It is not kindness. It is basic decency. I have been working with this family for 20 years. I have seen many things. And let me tell you something. Money does not make people. It only amplifies what they already are. Before I could answer, Linda appeared like lightning. Frank, I need you for a moment. Excuse us, Evelyn. She took him away in a hurry toward a group of guests. But Frank's words stayed with me. Money only amplifies what they already are. Linda and Jessica had always been cruel. Money only gave them a bigger stage to show it. 8:25, 5 minutes. I took my cell phone out of my purse. I had a message from David. I am at the door. Confirm when you want me to enter. I bring everything. This is going to be epic. I waited. I wanted the moment to be perfect. Jessica stepped up onto what seemed to be a small decorative step in the living room. She tapped her glass with a ring and everyone turned toward her. Family? Friends? I want to say a few words. First, Mom, thank you for this beautiful house. You are an example of what hard work and vision can achieve. You taught us that in life you have to aim high, that settling for mediocre is dying while alive. Her eyes found me in the crowd. The smile on her lips was pure evil disguised as sweetness. And I want to especially thank my mother-in-law, Evelyn, for accompanying us today. I know for her it must be intimidating to be in a place like this, so different from what she is used to. But I think it is good for her to see how one can live when a person has ambition and desire to improve themselves. Several people turned to look at me, some with pity, others with morbid curiosity. Jessica continued. My husband Michael comes from humble origins. His mom did what she could with the resources she had, and that is admirable in its own way. But Michael understood that to triumph, he needed to surround himself with successful people, people who inspired him to be better. That is why we are here today, because we chose excellence. The rage bubbled in my chest like lava, but I kept it contained. It was not time yet. Michael seemed uncomfortable. He shifted in his place. He looked at Jessica with something resembling concern, but he said nothing. He did not defend me. Again. Linda applauded dramatically. Well said, daughter. You have to tell things like they are. In this life, there are winners and there are losers. There are people who build empires and people who barely survive. And there is nothing wrong with being in the second group, as long as they recognize their place. I looked at my watch. 8:30. I texted David. Enter. Now. I waited. My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. 30 seconds later. The doorbell rang. Linda frowned. We are not expecting anyone else. Who could it be? One of the waiters went to open. There were voices at the entrance. Then firm steps approaching. David entered the living room. He was wearing an impeccable charcoal suit. In one hand, he carried a leather briefcase. In the other, a silver laptop. His presence was imposing, secure, professional. He walked directly toward me. Good evening, Mrs. Evelyn. Excuse the delay. Traffic was terrible. Everyone was looking at us. The confusion was palpable in the room. Linda approached with an annoyed expression. Excuse me, who are you? This is a private gathering. David extended his hand with icy courtesy. I am David Mendoza, lawyer and financial advisor to Mrs. Evelyn Reyes. Nice to meet you. Linda did not shake his hand. She just looked him up and down. Lawyer. Evelyn does not need a lawyer. She can barely pay for her own house. David smiled. That smile that lawyers practice when they know they hold all the winning cards. Precisely about that I come to speak. Mrs. Evelyn asked me to bring certain documentation. With your permission, I am going to need to use your television for a moment. Jessica laughed. This is ridiculous. Evelyn, what are you doing enough theater? I turned toward her. My voice came out calm, cold, deadly. It is not theater, Jessica. It is the truth, something you are not very familiar with. Michael approached. Mom, please. Do not do this. Do not humiliate yourself more. I am not humiliating myself, son. You guys did, for years. And today, here, in front of everyone, I am going to show you who I really am. David had already connected his laptop to the large screen television on the wall. The music stopped. All conversations ceased. On the screen, an image appeared. An aerial photograph of a spectacular property facing the sea. My mansion, my paradise, my secret. And the demolition began. The image on the screen was impressive even for me, who had seen the property hundreds of times. The aerial photograph captured the full magnitude of the mansion. The structure in light sand color shone under the sun. The infinity pool seemed to merge with the ocean. The gardens designed with palm trees and tropical plants created a luxury oasis. The wooden deck extended like a golden carpet toward the horizon. The silence in the room was absolute. All gazes were nailed to the television, all mouths slightly open in shock. David spoke with a clear professional voice. This is the property located at Diamond Beach, kilometer 32 of the coastal highway. 200 square meters of land, construction of 600 square meters, 4 master suites, each with private bath and balcony with ocean view, living room, dining room, gourmet kitchen, study, private cinema, gym, climate-controlled wine cellar, infinity pool of 20 meters, gardens designed by landscaper Robert Moore, winner of 3 international awards. He changed to the next image. The interior of the main living room, light wood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, elegant furniture in neutral tones, a crystal chandelier that looked like a cascade of light hanging from the high ceiling. Jessica was the first to react. Her voice came out high-pitched, almost hysterical. That is from the internet. It is a photo stolen from some magazine. You cannot prove to us that house really exists. David smiled. He had that expression lawyers have when the opponent falls exactly into the trap they prepared. You are right, Mrs. Jessica. Photos can be deceiving. That is why I brought official documentation. He pressed a key. The next image was the deed of the property. The document was zoomed in so all details could be read. Owner's name, Evelyn Reyes. Date of purchase, March 12th. 2 years ago. Purchase price, $750,000. Michael dropped his glass. The crystal shattered against the German porcelain floor of $200 a square meter. The champagne spilled like golden blood. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "What is this? This son is my house. The house I bought 2 years ago. The house to whose inauguration I invited you. The house that Jessica said did not exist." Linda had gone pale. All her composure, all her arrogance, evaporated in a second. "No," she stuttered. "This has to be fake. Evelyn does not have that kind of money. She lives in an old house. Michael told me you guys gave him $50,000 for his business, and that left her almost in ruins." David intervened with surgical coldness. Mrs. Evelyn effectively gave $50,000 to her son, but that represented only 2.1% of her total assets at that moment. Mrs. Evelyn's husband, may he rest in peace, left her an inheritance of $2,300,000 in cash, properties, and investments. Mrs. Evelyn has managed that capital with intelligence and discretion during the last 3 years. The numbers floated in the air like bombs. $2,300,000. I could see the mental calculators working in every head present. I could see the instant reevaluation of who I was. Jessica shook her head violently. No. If she had so much money, why would she keep living in that horrible house? Why would she not buy designer clothes? Why would she act like a poor woman? I turned toward her. My voice came out tranquil, but every word was a stab. "Because, Jessica, unlike you and your mother, I do not need to exhibit my money to feel valuable. I do not need expensive jewelry or luxury cars to know who I am. True wealth does not scream. It whispers." David continued without giving them time to recover. "Now, about the invitation to the inauguration, Mrs. Evelyn effectively invited her son and daughter-in-law 3 months ago. The next image appeared on screen. It was the invitation, the broken pieces on a black background, every fragment photographed in high resolution. The text could be seen clearly. The marks of the fingers that had torn it could be seen. This invitation was delivered personally by Mrs. Evelyn on Sunday, March 11th. It was ripped in front of her by Mrs. Jessica, who then threw it on the coffee table. Mrs. Evelyn collected the pieces and kept them as evidence of the contempt with which she was treated. Jessica recoiled as if she had been slapped. "I did not," she started to say, but her voice broke. Michael looked at her with wide eyes. "You ripped the invitation. You told me Mom never invited us to anything. You told me she was inventing stories. Jessica swallowed saliva. "I thought she was delusional. You said yourself she seemed confused. Liar." I shouted. The word came out of my mouth like a whip. For the first time all night, I lost my composure. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You ripped that invitation because you could not stand the idea that I had something better than your mother. You could not stand that I had achieved something that eclipsed your little world of appearances." Tears ran down my cheeks, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of liberated rage, of years of humiliation leaving my body like expelled poison. David continued, implacable. "There is more." He changed to the next image. It was a screenshot of a group chat. The name of the group was Michael's Family, but I was not included in it. The messages were from Jessica. I read them out loud so everyone would hear. "Do not invite Evelyn to Christmas dinner. She always ruins everything with her uncomfortable comments." Further down, another message. "Michael says his mom wants to visit us Saturday, but I invented that Ethan was sick. I cannot stand having her here all day." And another one. "The old woman asking for the kid again. When is she going to understand we do not want her around?" Jessica emitted a strangled sound. "Where did you get those messages? That is private. It is illegal." David looked at her with professional contempt. It was provided voluntarily by a member of the family group who felt uncomfortable with the content. Everything completely legal. "Michael was looking at the screen as if watching a car accident," Jessica whispered. "How could you?" She tried to touch him, but he pulled away. "It is not what it seems, Michael. I was just protecting you. Your mom is toxic. She has always tried to manipulate you." I laughed. A laugh without humor, without joy. I am toxic. I who gave you $50,000 when your business needed capital. I who stayed quiet when you humiliated me publicly. I who kept loving you even when you stopped treating me like your mother. David showed the next image. Bank receipts, transfers, not just the $50,000 for the failed business. There was more, much more. During the last 4 years, Mrs. Evelyn has transferred to her son's account a total of $182,000, $50,000 for the business, $20,000 for the down payment on the car, $30,000 for the wedding, $12,000 for the birth of the grandson, monthly payments of $2,500 during almost 3 years that Mrs. Jessica said were from a work bonus of her husband. Michael staggered. $1,500 a month. Mom, that was what we paid for rent all these years. You told me it was a bonus. Jessica, you told me I was earning it with my work. Jessica paled until she looked like a ghost. Michael, I can explain. Explain then. He roared. Explain to me how you could lie to me for 3 years. Explain to me how you let me believe my mother was a failure while she paid for our roof. Linda tried to intervene, her voice trembling. Daughter, what did you do? Why did you not tell me the mother-in-law was helping you financially? Because I did not want it to look like we needed help, Jessica shouted. Because you always brag about how successful you are, about how well you raised us. I could not admit we were in trouble. David seized the chaos to drop the last bomb. And speaking of financial problems, there is something Mr. Michael should know about the house we are in. All eyes turned toward him, including mine. I did not know this. This property was acquired by Mrs. Linda 6 months ago. The purchase price was $900,000. However, Mrs. Linda only had $300,000 in cash. The rest was financed with a loan. Linda went stiff. That is normal. Many people finance properties. David nodded. Yes, it is normal. What is not normal is that the loan of $600,000 was signed in the name of Mr. Michael without his knowledge. The silence that followed was sepulchral. Michael looked at his mother-in-law with incredulous eyes. What David showed the documents: mortgage loan from National Bank, digital signature of the applicant, Michael Navarro, date 5 months ago. My son looked at the papers as if they were written in a foreign language. I did not sign this. I never authorized a loan of $600,000. Someone with access to your personal documents and bank passwords did it for you, said David. Jessica, whispered Michael. You have my passwords. You handle our finances. The pieces fell into place. I could see the exact moment my son understood the magnitude of the betrayal. Jessica backed away until her back hit the wall. Her eyes moved frantically from Michael to Linda, to the guests who watched with expressions ranging from shock to morbid delight. Michael, I just wanted to help my mom. She needed the house. You know how important it is for her to maintain her status. Maintain her status, repeated Michael with a hollow voice. By stealing my identity, by putting me in a debt of $600,000 without my consent. Also, your mother can show off to her friends. Linda tried to justify herself. Her voice had lost all the authority it had minutes ago. Michael, understand. I was going to pay the loan. It is just a paper. It was not going to affect you, really. Not going to affect me. David, tell me. What happens if she cannot pay that loan? David answered with the precision of a surgeon cutting diseased tissue. The bank would foreclose against you, Mr. Michael. Your credit history would be destroyed. They could seize your bank accounts, your car, any property in your name. You would be financially ruined for years. Michael let himself fall onto the nearest sofa. His hands were shaking. During all this time, he whispered, I thought my mom was the problem. I thought she was the one dragging us down, and it turns out the people who were sinking me were my wife and my mother-in-law. I approached him. I knelt in front of my son. I took his hands in mine. They were cold as ice. Son, I never wanted you to find out like this. I just wanted you to see the truth. Why, Mom? He asked with a broken voice. Why did you not tell me you had money? Why did you let us treat you like trash? Because I needed to know who you really were. I needed to know if you loved me for being your mother or just for what I could give you. Tears rolled down my face without control, and I discovered my answer. Michael. I discovered that my son called me a failure. He compared me to a woman he barely knows. He told me I embarrassed him. He closed his eyes. 2 tears escaped down his cheeks. I am sorry, Mom. God, I am so sorry, Jessica shouted from her corner. This is your fault, Evelyn. You manipulated everything. You set up this trap. You planned to humiliate us publicly. I stood up and faced her. My voice came out like steel. I did not set up any trap, Jessica. You guys dug your own grave with your lies. I just brought the shovels so everyone could see the hole. The guests began to murmur among themselves. I could feel the shift in the atmosphere. They no longer looked at me with pity. They looked at me with something resembling respect, or maybe fear. Frank, the accountant who had been kind to me earlier, approached Linda. His expression was grave. Linda, I need to speak with you in private, but I think I already know what you are going to say. If you signed a loan with another person's identity without their consent, that is fraud. You could go to jail. Linda collapsed into a chair. Suddenly, she looked much older, much smaller. All her greatness had been a house of cards that collapsed with a single breath of truth. It was not my intention to commit fraud. Jessica told me Michael agreed. She told me he had given permission but wanted it to look like a surprise. All eyes turned toward Jessica. She shook her head frantically. No, that is a lie. Mom knew perfectly well that Michael had no idea. Mother and daughter looked at each other. In their eyes, I saw the moment their alliance broke. When ships sink, everyone tries to save themselves alone. There is no loyalty in desperation. David spoke again. His voice cut the chaos like a knife. There is more information that Mr. Michael needs to know. During the last 2 years, Mrs. Jessica has been withdrawing money from the joint account she shares with her husband. Small amounts. $200 here, $300 there. Added up, they reach $38,000. Michael looked up. $38,000. On what Jessica bit her lip until it bled. On nothing. Just expenses. Expenses, repeated Michael with disbelief. $38,000 in expenses while my mom paid our rent. While I worked 60 hours a week, believing we barely had enough to survive. David showed another image. Bank statements with the withdrawals marked in red. Spa, exclusive boutique, expensive restaurants, beauty salon, yoga classes at a private club that cost $500 a month. You told me we did not have money to take my mom to dinner, shouted Michael. You told me we had to save, that we could not afford luxuries, and meanwhile you spent thousands on facials and designer clothes. One of the guests, a woman with short platinum hair, spoke loudly. Jessica. That dress you are wearing is from the Valentino Fall collection. It costs $8,000. I know because I tried to buy it and it was sold out. $8,000. The words echoed in the hall. Michael stood up. His face was red with fury. $8,000 on a dress. $8,000. When I asked you to visit my mom, you told me we did not have money for gas. I deserved that dress, shouted Jessica. I marry a man with no future. I have to live with scraps while my friends have everything. I deserved something nice bought with lies, with deceit, with my stolen identity. He turned toward me. Mom, I need you to forgive me. Not for what just happened, for everything, for the years, for the ignored calls, for the canceled visits, for letting them keep you away from your grandson. I hugged my son, that son I thought I had lost forever. I hugged him like when he was little and had nightmares, tight, as if I could protect him from all the pain in the world. I forgive you, son. I am always going to forgive you. I felt his tears wetting my shoulder. His arms squeezed me with desperation. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry so much. I was so stupid, so blind. You were not stupid. You were manipulated. There is a difference. Jessica emitted a sound of fury. This is incredible. Everyone acting as if I were the devil. Michael. Everything I did was for us, for our family, for giving us a better life built on fraud and lies, replied Michael without letting go of me. A better life where you kept my son away from his grandmother, where you stole my identity to benefit your mother, where you spent our savings on frivolities while my mom paid our bills in silence. Several guests began to retreat discreetly, rats abandoning the ship. They murmured amongst themselves, took out their phones. This would be the gossip of the season in their social circles. Linda tried one last time to regain control. We all need to calm down. We can resolve this in private. There is no need to continue this spectacle. No, I said with a firm voice. The spectacle continues because there is still something else. I took an envelope out of my purse, a thick manila envelope that had been waiting for its moment. This, I said, lifting it, is the deed to the apartment where Michael and Jessica currently live. Michael frowned, confused. What does our apartment have to do with all this? I opened the envelope. I took out the documents and handed them to David. He projected them on the screen. This apartment was acquired 3.5 years ago. Purchase price, $290,000, paid in cash. The registered owner is... He made a dramatic pause. Evelyn Reyes. The silence was absolute. Michael read the documents on the screen 1, 2, 3 times. Mom, what does this mean? It means son. That the apartment where you have lived for almost 4 years belongs to me. I bought it. I lent it to you. You never paid rent because I was the owner. The money that Jessica told me she sent as rent went straight to her personal account. Michael looked at Jessica with an expression I had never seen on him before, a mix of absolute betrayal, disbelief, and something darker, something that looked like pure hate. You knew. You knew my mom was the owner of the apartment, and you lied to me. You made me believe we paid rent. You made me feel proud that we could maintain our own roof. Jessica opened her mouth, but no words came out, only a strangled sound. David continued without mercy. Mrs. Jessica received monthly transfers of $500 from Mrs. Evelyn with the concept of rent. During 42 months, that sums to $63,000, money that was never applied to any housing payment because there was no payment to make, money that Mrs. Jessica spent on personal expenses without her husband's knowledge. He showed the account statements, every transfer marked, every month documented. The evidence was irrefutable. A guest in a salmon dress spoke out loud. That is theft. Literally, she was stealing from her husband and her mother-in-law at the same time. Michael walked toward Jessica with slow steps. She backed away until she had nowhere to go. $63,000, he said with a voice trembling with contained anger. $63,000 that my mom gave you believing they paid for our home. And you spent them on what, Jessica? On what exactly? On keeping us at your level, she shouted finally. On not looking poor. On our friends not knowing we were a failure. On your son being able to go to a good preschool. On decent clothes so we didn't look like beggars. Ethan's preschool costs $200 a month, intervened David, consulting his notes. Those are $400 a year, not $63,000 in 3.5 years. Jessica started to cry. It was not a delicate cry. It was an ugly, desperate cry of someone who sees their world crumbling. You guys do not understand the pressure. My friends all have houses, new cars, vacations in Europe. I could not be the only poor one in the group. But you were not poor, roared Michael. You lived in an apartment my mom bought. You received money from my mom every month. Your problem was not being poor. Your problem is that you are a liar and a thief. The words fell like a death sentence. Jessica slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. Her $8,000 dress wrinkled beneath her. Her perfect makeup ran in black lines down her cheeks. Linda tried to defend her daughter one last time. Jessica committed mistakes, but she did it for love, for wanting to give her family a dignified life. I laughed. It was a dry laugh, without humor, for love. Linda, your daughter kept my grandson away from me for 2 years. She called me toxic, excluded me from family events, ripped my invitation in my face, stole $63,000 from me, and all the time made me feel as if I were the failure. That is not love. That is pure cruelty. Michael turned toward me, his eyes red from crying. Mom. Where is the boy now with the nanny? Answered Jessica from the floor. In our... She stopped. In the apartment. In my apartment, I corrected. The apartment I lent you out of kindness, out of love for my son, and that I am now going to recover. I took another document out of my purse. I handed it to Michael. It is an eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate the property. After that, I am going to sell it or rent it to someone who treats me with respect. Michael read the document. He did not protest. He did not beg. He just nodded slowly. It is fair, Mom. More than fair, considering everything. Jessica stood up, stumbling. You cannot do this, Evelyn. We have a child. You cannot throw us into the street. I am not throwing you into the street. I am giving you 30 days to find where to live. Besides, I understand your mother has this beautiful mansion. I am sure she can lend you a room. Or maybe sell the house and pay the fraudulent loan she signed in my son's name. Linda went pale again. Sell my house. This house is my pride, my achievement. Your achievement built on fraud, I said coldly. Your achievement that could send you to jail if Michael decides to press charges. Michael looked at me. I should, Mom. I should press charges. That decision is yours, son. I already did what I came to do. I already showed the truth. The rest depends on you. The remaining guests observed as if watching a play. Some people held their phones up recording. This story would live on the internet forever. Frank approached Michael. Young man, as the family accountant, I recommend you file a formal complaint. Identity fraud is a serious crime. If you do not report it, you will remain legally responsible for that debt. Michael nodded slowly. I will do it. Tomorrow I am going to go to a lawyer and the police. Linda began to sob. Please, Michael, I am your son's grandmother. You cannot do this to me. You had no problem doing it to me, answered he with a hard voice. You risked my financial future, my son's future, all for a house that could impress your friends. You are not a victim. You are a criminal. Jessica crawled toward Michael, literally crawled on the floor, grabbing the hem of his pants. Michael, please, we can fix this. We can go to therapy. I can change. Do not destroy our family. He looked at her from above. In his eyes, there was no love. There was no compassion, only weariness. You destroyed our family, Jessica. Every lie, every manipulation, every time you kept my son away from his grandmother, every time you made me feel I was not enough while spending my mom's money on luxuries. You did this. He bent down and gently removed Jessica's hands from his clothes. I am going to take Ethan tonight. Tomorrow my lawyer will contact you to start the divorce process. The word divorce fell like an anvil. Jessica screamed, a primal scream of loss and desperation. You cannot take my son from me. I am his mother. You are a thief and a liar, replied Michael, and I am going to fight for full custody. I do not want my son growing up learning that it is okay to steal and manipulate. David packed his laptop. His job was finished. Mrs. Evelyn. All original documents are in my office. If Mr. Michael needs copies for his legal proceedings, I have everything ready. Thanks, David. I do not know what I would have done without you. He smiled. It was a pleasure, ma'am. Rarely do I have cases where justice is so clear and so satisfying. I turned toward the room, toward the guests that remained, toward Linda in her destroyed chair, toward Jessica on the floor crying, toward my son standing firm for the first time in years. I took a last envelope out of my purse. This is for you, Michael. I extended it toward him. What is it, Mom? It is the deed to the apartment. I am transferring it to you. Now it is yours. Completely paid off, no mortgages, no debts, so that you and Ethan have a secure home. Michael took the envelope with trembling hands. Mom, I do not deserve this. Not after how I treated you. That is exactly why I give it to you, son. Because despite everything, despite the pain and humiliation, you are still my son. And mothers forgive. Mothers continue loving even when they shouldn't. He hugged me, a long and tight hug. I could feel his body shaking with silent sobs. I love you, Mom. Forgive me. Please forgive me. I already forgave you, son. Now forgive yourself, Jessica shouted from the floor. This is unfair. He deceived me. He promised me a better life. He owes me something. You deceived yourself. I told her, turning toward her. Michael gave you love, loyalty, a beautiful son, but that was not enough for you. You wanted money, status, appearances, and now you lost everything because the important things are not built on lies. I turned toward the door. Michael walked by my side. At the entrance, we stopped. I looked back one last time. Linda remained in her chair in her $900,000 mansion that could cost her freedom. Jessica on the floor with her $8,000 dress that now looked like a pathetic costume. The guests whispering, recording, turning their tragedy into entertainment. Goodbye, Linda. I hope your house is worth it. Goodbye, Jessica. I hope your dresses keep you warm in the lonely nights that are coming. We left together, mother and son, under the stars of a night that had changed everything. 3 months had passed since that night. 3 months that felt like a whole lifetime. The scandal had been monumental. The videos recorded by the guests went viral in the city's social circles. Linda had to sell her mansion to pay lawyers and try to avoid criminal charges. Jessica lost all her friends when it became known she had been living off stolen money while bragging about luxuries she could not afford. But I did not follow that drama. I was not interested in seeing how they sank. I had already seen enough. I was sitting on the terrace of my mansion facing the sea. The salty breeze caressed my face. The morning sun painted the ocean in tones of gold and turquoise. A cup of coffee steamed in my hands. Next to me, Susan was browsing a decoration magazine. "This piece is what you deserved for years," she said without looking up. "I'm glad you finally have it." I smiled. After the storm always comes the calm. I heard steps behind me. I turned around. Michael walked toward the terrace carrying Ethan in his arms. My grandson was 3 years old now, dark hair like his father, curious eyes that looked at everything with wonder. "Good morning, Mom," said Michael. "Ethan wants to show you something." The boy extended his little hands toward me. He was holding a drawing. Crooked crayon lines formed figures that only a child could decipher. "Grandma, look, it is your house, the sea, and you." He pointed to each element with his little finger. My heart melted. I took him in my arms and covered him with kisses. "It is the most beautiful drawing I have seen in my life, treasure." Michael sat next to me. He looked different now, lighter, as if he had lifted an invisible weight from his shoulders. The divorce was almost finalized. Jessica had accepted joint custody, but Ethan lived mainly with Michael in the apartment I had transferred to him. "Mom, I have something to tell you," Michael began with a serious voice. My heart raced. What is it, son? I have been going to therapy 2 times a week, and my therapist helped me understand many things. He helped me see how I allowed Jessica to manipulate me, how I abandoned my own values to please someone who never really valued me. I stayed silent, letting him continue. But the most important thing, Mom, is that I understood the damage I did to you, not just in those last years, but from the beginning, since I let myself be convinced that your love was not enough, that I needed the approval of people who did not really know me. I traded you for appearances, and that, his voice broke, that has no forgiveness. Michael, I started to say, but he raised his hand. Let me finish, please. I have spent these 3 months trying to be better, not just as a father, but as a son. I want Ethan to grow up knowing his grandmother. I want him to learn from you, your strength, your dignity, your capacity to forgive even when you do not deserve it. Tears ran down my face. Ethan touched my cheek with his little hand. Grandma sad. He asked with concern. No treasure. Grandma happy. Very happy. Michael took an envelope out of his pocket. This is for you. It is a letter. I wrote it in therapy. It has everything I need to tell you. Everything I feel. Read it when you are alone. And if after reading it you can still forgive me completely, I would like you to consider something. What thing son Ethan and I want to move here with you, not to take advantage. I am going to pay rent. I am going to contribute to expenses. But I want my son to grow up close to you. I want to make up for lost time. I want us to be family again, real family. I looked at my son, at my grandson, at the terrace with ocean view, at the life I had built from the ashes of my pain. You do not need to pay rent, Michael. This house is big enough for everyone. And yes, I would love for you to live here with me. Michael threw himself to hug me. Ethan got squashed between us and laughed with that crystalline laugh of children who do not know sadness. Thanks, Mom. I promise I am not going to disappoint you again. Do not promise me that, son. Just promise me you are going to be honest, that you are going to communicate, that when something is wrong, you are going to tell me instead of pulling away. I promise. Susan wiped her tears discreetly. Well, I think it is time for me to go. 3 is a crowd, and with the boy, it is 4. Do not be silly, Susan. You are family too. In fact, there is something I want to propose to you. She looked at me with curiosity. What thing? Come live here too. You have your own room, your private bath. Ocean view. We have been friends for 30 years. It is time we be more than that. Let's be sisters in life. Susan hugged me with force. Oh, Evelyn, you are going to make me cry more than I am already crying. It is a yes, then. It is a resounding yes. We spent the rest of the morning on the terrace. Ethan played with his cars on the wooden floor. Michael told me about his new job. He had gotten a position at a digital marketing firm. Nothing glamorous, but honest and stable. Susan planned out loud how she was going to decorate her new room. At noon, I prepared lunch, pasta with homemade tomato sauce, Michael's favorite dish since he was a child. We ate in the dining room overlooking the garden. Ethan stained his face with sauce and we all laughed. In the afternoon, Michael took Ethan to the pool. I saw him teaching him to float. The boys' shouts of joy filled the air. Susan and I sat under an umbrella drinking fresh lemonade. You won, Evelyn, said Susan suddenly. Against all odds, you won. It was not about winning or losing. It was about dignity, about not allowing them to define me by their lies. Well, your dignity destroyed them. I heard Jessica is working as an administrative assistant earning minimum wage, and Linda is living in a 2-bedroom apartment. Her entire social circle turned their back on them. I did not feel joy hearing that, nor did I feel sadness, just indifference. They chose their path. Now they have to walk it. The sun began to descend, dyeing the sky pink and orange. Michael took Ethan out of the water and wrapped him in a towel. The boy ran toward me, dripping water. "Grandma, can I sleep here tonight? Please." "Of course, my love. In fact, your dad and you are going to sleep here every night from now on." His eyes lit up. "Really? We are going to live in the sea house." "Yes, treasure. This is your house now." He hugged me, soaking me completely. I did not care. I hugged my grandson, feeling his heart beat against mine. This was the moment I had dreamed of for 2 years, this simple and perfect moment. That night we had dinner on the terrace under the stars. Michael grilled fresh fish we had bought at the town market. Susan prepared salad. I made coconut rice. Ethan ate with appetite before falling asleep on my lap. Michael carried him to take him to bed. When he returned, he sat next to me in silence. We looked at the dark ocean with the moon reflecting on the waves. "You know, Mom," he said finally, "all my life I thought success was having money, status, impressing people. But now I understand that true success is this: being surrounded by people who really love you, having peace, having a home where you can be yourself." I nodded. That is why I never bragged about my money, son. Because I knew it was not the important thing. The important thing was always love, family, loyalty, and I traded it all for a pretty lie. But you came back, and that is what counts. We stayed in silence, listening to the waves. Susan had gone to sleep. It was just Michael and me under the infinite sky. "Jessica wrote to me," he said suddenly. "She wants to apologize to you. I am not interested in her apology. I imagined. I just wanted you to know. There's something more important I want you to know, Michael. I love you. I always loved you, even when you hurt me, even when I thought I had lost you forever. You are my son, and nothing is going to change that." He rested his head on my shoulder like when he was small. "I love you too, Mom, and I am going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you." We stayed like that until the moon reached its highest point, mother and son reunited, wounds healing, future shining like the sea under the sun. This was my revenge, not the public humiliation of that night. That was just justice. My true revenge was this: living well, loving deeply, building a real family based on truth and respect, waking up every morning in my mansion facing the sea with the people who really mattered by my side. Jessica and Linda could keep their empty appearances, with their lies that drowned them, with their lives built on sand. I had something they could never buy or steal. I had peace. I had true love. I had my son back. I had my grandson learning what real family meant. And while the waves kept breaking on the shore and the stars shone above us, I knew with absolute certainty that I had won. Not the battle, the war. Because in the end, the best revenge is living well, and I was living better than ever.